We'll embrace the chaos a bit with another offensive video. I know a lot of people are making them, myself included, because there's so many things that work in this game in the current state. But I found, at least from my findings, there might be something much better, but the best two-man route combination in the entire game, which is the fade out combination that you see in the far left right here. And in particular, we're going to be converting that underneath out route to actually just a straight up streak, because it allows us to do a lot of interesting things. And you'll find this in Gun Empty Tray Stack, which is in a few different books. Right here I'm in Run and Gun, but it's also in many of the other stack sets, which you can find in any other playbook. I'm sure most of them have at least one stack look. You may be able to find it already in your playbook. If not, you can easily go on something like Huddle GG and find it yourself. This one here is nice because I think it's the only way to get the stack on the weak side. So that's really nice because it allows us to really stress 3-3-5 wide, Mike Blitz 3 types of things, as you'll see right now. That'll be the first one we get into. Okay, so right here I have the fade out combination set to the field right here. I think you can run it to the boundary or to the field, but right here I think it's best to just have it to the field to have more space for both of these routes to work. And actually, although the out route is nice, and you have this nice little inside release that gets you nice separation against man coverage, and even sometimes if I put them on a curl, that's nice too. Where this is really going to set itself apart is if we just streak this guy. And this is great against zone coverages, particularly like cover 3. I think a coverage that people really like to run in this game, but it really sets itself apart furthermore against man coverage, which we'll see kind of later on towards the end of the video or the middle of the video. But for now, we just want to go against some of the more popular looks right here. So we have the fade out right here, and we're going to go against the Mike Blitz 3 meta. And I don't have the ability to set zone drops or anything like that in practice mode still, unfortunately. But these things kind of work out the same. We're not really looking to attack the flats or the deep sidelines unless it's open. We're really looking for the seam first and foremost. And what's great right here, because it's a stack, even if they leave the stock look right here, they don't do any sort of zone adjustments or anything like that, you won't get any sort of matching from the seam flat. So what you'll get right here is you'll get the X receiver running right up the seam, and usually you can get 40 easy yards or more from that. So right away, that's really, really nice. And even if it's a more conventional cover 3 look where they have the free safety right in the middle of the field where he can play both seams a little bit better, I could show that, but I'll just tell you it works just as well in this case, because the free safety is usually drifting a little bit more to these 3 verticals over here. You need to help there. But right here, this ends up being like a 5 verticals type of look. I won't talk too much about this side, but there's a lot you can do there with curl routes and comebacks over here. Something I'll get into in another video. But right now, we're just mostly talking about these guys right here. Now, they can do something like this, where they put that outside guy on a deep half, and that will play the seam a little bit better. But if you have trust in that receiver, you can still throw it inside pass lead. You won't get maybe as many yards, but it'll still be a big chunk. The other thing, if they are playing a deep half right here, is that because that deep half sinks, it's kind of funny, but it drifts more towards the middle of the field than that deep third, then it'll just open up that wheel route or that fade route, essentially. So although you can throw that seamer right there, you can wait for that seam or that fade to open up, and you got your one play score down the sideline. Now, of course, things can change a little bit, right? If they have like 30-yard flats over here, it may make it difficult for you to throw that fade along the sideline. But, that's not something I'm really looking for too much of the time. It's usually that seam look that's going to be open or, something to the front side, to the trips. So that's one thing that you can look for. And then another thing, depending on which formation you're running out of this, this flat route can sometimes match that fade. In this game, they have the second man through logic for some of these flat zones where if they have one vertical route that passes them, they will match the next one, which is usually like a wheel or a fade type of thing. So sometimes he can do that, and then things will be, for all intents and purposes, covered. They won't, right? Because this seamer is going to be open whether it's a half or a third. But if that flat were to match, then you always have the option of running a shallow crosser or even an intermediate crosser from this side. And if the user doesn't pick it up, it's going to be a big chunk of yards. But for this case, for what I'm showing you here, they don't match it anyway, so we can throw the seam or we can throw the fade down the sideline. Now, this particular look isn't so great because we don't have any protection besides the 5 offensive linemen. So, you know, if they're doing those crazy blitz setups where they're, you know, really bringing everybody and then mugging the gap and making sure at least one of those edge guys comes in, you don't have really much help there. And even though this is a 2 tight end set, you know, this guy just comes into another stack look right here. So you don't have much help in terms of protection. But if you are looking at some of the other stack sets like stack Y off weak or something like that, or stack Y off, where they do have a tight end or they do have a running back, then you can get the same thing, but with a little bit more protection. I just like this one because it's a little bit interesting. That's what I've been using now. So that's cover 3. It's really that seam shot. And then if you want also, you can take that fade down the sideline if it should open up. Then, you know, you have Tampa 2. So, you know, Tampa 2 or 30-yard clouds is a little bit tricky, but in this case, you do have, just against stock Tampa 2, you do have this fade route. The seam isn't as usable because now the deep half is coming from a safety rather than the corner, so he has that inside positioning on you, so you can't really throw that seamer, but you can just wait for this guy to clear the cloud. Looks like he might have matched a little bit late there, but he's never going to be able to catch up stock. So right away, pretty cool against zone coverage. Now you have man coverage too. So I found that in the past, running stack sets or spread sets in general, you tend to see a lot of man coverage and a lot of press man coverage from people. And here's what's cool in this year's game. So we know, you might have noticed already, that you're more likely to, you know, for receivers to bump into each other, or defensive backs and receivers to bump into each other. So I don't know if that's by intention or not, but it seems to be a real thing now, and we can start to think about rub routes and things like that. And this is something you could kind of sometimes do in the previous games with stack sets, and here it's much easier. So I'll show you what I'm going to do right now. I've picked cover 0 and I've pressed. And now again, it's really the same route combination here. I'm looking primarily at that seam, and you see how he gets completely open right here for that one play score. So what happens right here is, even though the press guy is, I don't know why it works like this, but the guy pressed down is actually covering the underneath guy. But because you're running a wheel route here, it kind of rubs him off. And then the guy that corner is actually defending is already, you know, 5 steps up the field. And then from there, it's an easy score. Now, I will say it's very important who this receiver is. I still haven't figured out why or who or what or when you need a specific type of receiver, but specific types of receivers will not get the attention of this guy, and some will. So right here I have, I think, the 4th string receiver off the Bills. When I was trying this with the Saints, I had Deontay Harris, who I just picked up the Ultimate Team card, and he's working fine in Ultimate Team for me. He's like a 74 overall or something. I think it's something through. I think they have to be somewhat of a poor receiver to be able to do this. In which case, you know, you can just put him in your bench and then sub him in if you want to run this play. But I don't know what it is. It's not solely release. I think it's maybe some sort of combination of release and catching somehow. I don't know. I haven't really figured that out yet, but once you find a player that does it, they'll be able to do it every time, and then you can go ahead and exploit this as he will. Or it's not even exploit. Like, you wouldn't really want to, you know, play stack sets like this in real life because of this sort of thing. This is just how it manifests itself in this game. So that's cover 0, and we can also look at cover 2 man. So it's the same thing, and then they can do any sort of shading inside or outside. Obviously with the deep half right here, that will take away what you're looking to do. But, you know, if they're, say, you know, bringing this guy into user, or if they're putting him on, you know, one of those deep flat type of assignments, then this will be a totally reasonable thing for you to do. You pick that guy off, and again, you know, you're free by 5 or 10 or 15 yards. Now here's what is really cool. So if I go back to cover 2 man, press, taking this guy out of the play, I'm assuming my opponent's trying to be aggressive and things like that. Now I'm shading up. I'm shading over the top, so I shouldn't get any sort of aggressive press animations. But you see one of those corners still pushes the other corner out of the way. So I think that's really, really cool that it can work with a regular press, but also a press with a shade over the top. I don't think there's any other route combinations that do that. Now, if it is a cover zero where it's just one guy pressed like this, and if they shade over the top, I've seen it happen before that he still gets bugged out, but for the most part, he's okay to pick it up if they're shading over the top. But then, if they're shading over the top, then there's just other things you can easily do, like slants and zigs and things like that. One last thing I wanted to show about cover 2 man is if you're coming across one of these guys that just calls cover 2 man, because usually this is a coverage that's pressed automatically, or they see what you did to them and they don't want to press the stack set, but they still want to play cover 2 man for whatever reason, still doing this thing. I don't know. I'm just showing this for the purpose of demonstration. Because cover 2 man is shaded underneath by default, even if they're not pressing, you can get them beat, particularly with things like this wheel route right here, or even in this case, you see both the wheel and the seam got wide open. Now I'm showing this against Jimmy Smith, who's a good corner, but he's not fast by any means. But just note that if whoever I put there, I can put Jalen Ramsey, it'll work out just the same. Now, if they are going through the lengths of, say, playing man, they're not pressing the stack, they're shading over the top, and they're even leaving this guy over the top right here, now this is something that you would pick up on, right? So once they start doing that, then I'll start doing things like converting this guy to a curl. And what I can do is just simply throw that all day long, right? 10 yard after 10 yards. Sometimes they miss a tackle and it turns into even more. And where this adjustment is also really good is against, say, something like cover 4, whether it's match or drop, because this is a coverage that will actually defend this route combination really well. You see, I just don't have anybody to throw it to. Maybe I could try to squeeze it in over here, but if the corner is any sort of decent, he'll be able to play on that. So again, if you notice anything like that, you can run this sort of stock combination, or you just simply run the curl right here, and you can just throw that all day long. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Hoping this would be more of a quick video, but I just rambled on like usual. I think it's really, really interesting. I think you should try it out, whether it's in this set or something like that. I think it has a lot of potential to annoy your opponents. But otherwise, that'll be it for this one, and I'll see you guys in the next one.